Case prices have been going crazy lately, and it shows no sign of slowing down. Remember back in the day, when most active cases were 3 to 5 cents? Well, that's a thing of the past. Right now, this is what the active duty case pool actually looks like. And yes, one of them isn't even a case. But just look at those prices for a second. This is insanity. The cheapest cases are now 30 to 40 cents. That's 40 to 60 cents on Steam. And when an actually good case, like the Dreams and Nightmares, is actively dropping, it can now stay above €1.50 basically indefinitely. The system is basically broken, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. In fact, I think that this whole system could become nuclear relatively soon, which I will explain in this video. Valve never meant for it to be this way, and yet here we are. So let's talk about why all of this is as bad as it is and what you should do about it. There are a couple of factors that make the current case market the way that it is. High demand, low supply, Valve's track record in general, and the current state of the world. I will talk about all of these individually first. Just look at this chart. It's the average player number for Counter-Strike ever since it came out in 2012. It's just basically a straight line upwards. It's basically constant growth. Of course the game has spots where it is slightly down, but name me another video game that can stay relevant for a decade or more and continue to grow and evolve as it does so. I'll wait. Did you name one? Because I bet it's one of the following 6 games. Minecraft, GTA, World of Warcraft, League of Legends, The Sims, Call of Duty. That's it. That's basically all the games, along with CS2, that fit in that category. And if you did name something else, put it in the comments, I'll be happy to check it out. This very select group of games have done the impossible. Stay relevant as every other game eventually dies out. This is a very elite group to be a part of as Counter-Strike, and it is also the main reason why cases are doing so well. There is basically more interest in our little market than ever. Many players queue for a game of Counter-Strike every day. Old players come back and new players become interested. And as all of that happens, cases are being decimated. Just opened at rates beyond Valve's wildest dreams. Every Counter-Strike player and their 13-year-old nephew Timmy wants to open a nice knife, a butterfly, a karambit, a ruby, sapphire, fade, or even a terrible one, because it's a knife. CS items have built up such a big reputation that people now accept some of them to be worth millions of dollars for video game pixels. Let that sink in. The supply of cases in CS2 is basically entirely bottlenecked by the current drop system. Every player receives one care package every week with one case, if they play enough. This means in practice not enough cases get dropped for all of the consistent demand in our little game. There are other ways of getting cases, but most cases get released with the active drop system and are then put in the rare drop pool. Apart from certain operation and armory cases, which get discontinued fully after their usage. Valve has essentially been doing the same thing for 10 plus years. They put a new case in the active duty drop pool, they remove one of the oldest ones and make it rare, and then they wait for a while. Rinse and repeat. For a decade. Which means people can count on it happening. In a game where you can't count on anything. This is the one thing that always happens. Always has, always will. So people buy the active duty cases just to wait until they are made rare and make a profit. This means even more people will hold on to active cases rather than sell them. All of this increases price further and decreases supply as well. The world's economy is also not helping. Almost all things in the world are more expensive now than ever. Housing, stocks, crypto, prices are through the roof all around. In short, assets are in. This means people tend to look for alternative places to put their money and alternative ways to make more money. CS2 and its economy is a perfect niche to look at in that regard. Things regularly spike, market trends always go up, and popularity is booming. So anyone can see why people might invest in a case, something that is guaranteed to become rare and expensive in the current system. Now before we continue, I must explain to you how the system works, because this is the main reason everything is going so insane. And to fully understand the problem, you must understand this first, otherwise it just doesn't work. Like I said before, the CS2 supply of cases is basically one giant bottleneck. So let me explain how the system works in short. Valve gives out one care package to every player every week. This care package contains at least one case, one skin and one graffiti, with the last slot being filled with either a skin, graffiti or a charmed attachment pack. It seems like you can't get a second case in the drops from my research, but if you have had that happen, let me know. You then select two of those four options and voila, your 2 drops for the week. But there is a catch. There are a few requirements to get the weekly care package. 1. You must have Prime status. Prime status costs $14.99 or €13.29 depending on your currency. 2. You must level up your CS2 profile at least once during that week. To be clear, we don't mean your matchmaking or Steam accounts, we simply mean your CS2 account on which you get XP in-game. To level up your account, you must earn the next rank for your account in that week, which takes 5000 XP to reach the next level. Also, the weeks reset at 8 PM Central Time or 1 AM Greenwich Mean Time. 3. You must earn XP by playing official Valve servers. You can play either Premier, Competitive, Wingman, Deathmatch or Arms Race, as long as it is one of the official Valve servers. Now getting the 5000 XP is not too terribly hard, as you can also use the XP you got the previous week after you already leveled up. Plus the XP is not too much to get anyways. The weekly bonus XP also helps a lot. And yet, this system greatly bottlenecks how many cases get dropped every month. It's all fun and games to say that the supply is not a lot and the demand is huge, but what does it actually work out to be? Because anyone can claim anything, but proving it is harder. Well, Valve's own numbers estimate around 1.5 million daily players. You can check all of this, by the way, on the Steam database. That 1.5 million means over a week there will be millions and millions of different players. Of course, many of those people will play on multiple days of the week, so way less than the total, but still. Let's go for the maximum for now, which would mean every player plays only once on one day of the week and get their care package immediately on that day. Even then, in this essentially dream world that doesn't exist, we would only have a maximum of 10.5 million players per week. And remember, many of those players are the same person. So let's say about 8 million people actively play the game every week, which is probably still way too high. And remember, many of them will not match our requirements. Not everyone has Prime status, but let's say most people make the same decision to actually play the game properly and buy Prime. That's about 90% of active players. Then we have a bunch of people not playing active Valve servers or not gaining XP from it. Let's say that 90% of us do still, but yeah. Then we have a bunch of people who don't play enough to get the care package each week, or maybe not basically ever. If you only play one game every once in a while, it'll take ages before you get the first package. I don't even get my package every week, and I play quite often. So let's be very generous with all these numbers and say that 80% of possible care packages get claimed every week, which in reality will be far, far lower. If you go ahead and calculate all of those percentages into our total, it works out to about 5.8 million claimed packages every week. That means 20.7 million per month. And since every care package contains one case, that means 2.7 million cases dropped every month. Now, I will assume that everyone will take the case. I mean, some people might choose not to, but it is often quite a dumb decision not to take it, so I'm gonna just assume everyone takes it. Now, 1% of those cases is rare, which leaves 20.5 million active duty cases. The chance to get each case from the active drop pool is equal. So that means a 20% chance to get each different case. That means roughly 4.1 million of each case per month. And remember, we were very generous with all the numbers, so that's a maximum. That's the maximum amount of cases that get dropped each month. Or well, cases, 4 cases and 1 uplink terminal, since that is now apparently also a part of the active drop pool. Let's now compare that number to the monthly opened case numbers of this month. Now, they just released the new figures, so we have a very accurate depiction of what people are currently opening. As you can see, the case opened most right now is the fever case, but since that is in the armory, we will leave that out of this analysis. But I do have a video planned that goes more in detail on all of these numbers, so stay tuned for that. Let's instead look at the active cases here in blue. As you can see, there are only 4 since the 5th active case is now the uplink terminal. These all vary from 3 to 4 million cases getting opened each month, and this is the most conservative estimate we have. These numbers are based on how many new skins become visible on public databases, which is not nearly all skins. Also, rented cases don't count, and otherwise private accounts won't show either. So in reality, these figures will be substantially higher. So wait, if there are 4.1 million of each case dropped every month, and 3 to 4 million of each case get instantly opened the same month, that only leaves about 500,000 cases to be played around with. If that, because the opening rates will likely be higher than I estimated, and the drops will likely be less than I calculated. Because that's the beauty in our estimate, it's the highest it can be, and the case opening numbers are the lowest they can be. So the only way it could go, if you don't believe them, is further apart, which means there's even less space to move around. And the big problem comes around when a case gets discontinued, like the fracture case, because suddenly they are dropped barely, if at all. But people still want to open it with millions at a time, so the built-up supply quickly gets burned in the year after its discontinuation, if not in the few months after its discontinuation, and the price shoots up rapidly. Look at the fracture case, for example, since it recently became rare, and yet people are still willing to open 3.2 million of them. Now, it's only just been discontinued, so that number is bound to change, but still. This is of course because the price is still relatively low, and because there is hype around it. But you can easily see why the remaining supply would vanish like snow in front of the sun. And we haven't even thought about inactive accounts, people mass investing into these cases, and all of the other ways that items get out of circulation outside of this system. Like, for example, people get banned too. So, prices are going so insane because opening demand is finally catching up to the drop rate. So now that we understand why the prices have shot up this much, let's talk about Valve. Because Valve is in the middle of all of this. Valve creates the market we live in, and they control all the ways that this system works. So Valve needs this system to keep working, because they make millions, if not billions of dollars each month on this system. And you might think that the higher prices will be good for Valve, but the contrary is true. Every cent you spend on the Steam community market is a cent not going to Valve. So the more expensive cases get, the more percent of the money you spend per case opened doesn't go to Valve either, which Valve themselves do not like. But just flooding the market with cases will not help either, because the only reason people trust this market is because Valve hasn't screwed us. The trust of Valve is what keeps this entire market functioning flawlessly. And screwing around with it will inevitably make people get burned. So Valve are in a pickle. Either they increase drops and make some people less willing to invest and spend in this market, which will mean that at least in the short term they make less money, or they let prices keep rising and lose out on money being spent on their cases on the Steam market. Of course, they do still get 15% of that as well, but it's less than 100%. But I guess they are dealing with a ticking time bomb. They don't have long because their game is still growing, and their system, in its current state, cannot deal with the amount of increased demand that will bring long term. So if this system doesn't change, rare cases will keep skyrocketing, even with millions still in supply and more getting added every day. And even active cases will grow in price, maybe eventually all going above $1 to $2, if not more. Look, Valve has a couple real options. Increase drops. Look, there's a lot of ways they could do this. They could, for example, extend the care package to 5 items shown and 3 chosen, for example. Or add another second care package for your second level up in the week. They could also add a different way to get cases. They could even just give us the option to get 2 cases in 1 care package per week. That would already give a huge boost to how many cases there would be available. But you have to remember, all of this would generate panic. It would crash prices and it would inevitably hurt the opening rates, at least short term. It is the only real fix though. Create a middle rarity. Something between active and rare to slow down price spikes. For example, make cases become uncommon first, where they have a 5% chance of dropping. But this wouldn't massively decrease the prices, it would just slow them down. Create other systems to generate income aside from cases. We've seen a lot of this option lately. The uplink terminal, the armory, charms, and those are just the things that are new. Valve have already introduced so many alternative ways to make money other than cases that they will be fine without them. Valve is very risk averse, and although this option won't fix the problem with cases, it will delay when they have to deal with it, and if they have to deal with it at all, it also makes them more money in the meantime, which they seem to love. But here's the thing, time is running out. So I'm personally very excited to see what Valve would do if the cheapest case would, for example, be €2, €5, or even €10. Here's how to deal with this new way of life, because cases are expensive now, and that will not change anytime soon by the looks of it. Buy or keep new cases when they are actively dropping. That's your best shot at a low price. Diversify. Don't just hold cases. Stickers, skins, agents, or anything else. Spread the risk. Grab some rare cases now while they're still cheap enough. Especially the ones with the popular knives and gloves. Don't forget gloves. There's still plenty of money to be made in this new and exciting time. More now even. So don't keep with the ways of the past, but try something new. Cases will be doing very well for a long time to come, even if they aren't 3 cents anymore. So yeah, cheap cases, well, they're a thing of the past. But that doesn't mean the market is dead. It just means that the market that we are in right now is way stronger and way more capable of producing very large amounts of capital. It is a positive thing, really. This video is my 100th video, which feels like a massive milestone. So to celebrate that, I want to invite you as the viewer to comment your most deep and current questions or topics about CS2 investing that you have on your mind right now and put it down in the comments. Then go ahead and look at all the other comments and like the comments that you agree with. The most liked comment will be the video that I will actually make, because you as the viewer are the only reason I make these videos to begin with, and I feel like I should thank all of you. If you got some value from this video at all, and you want more videos on CS2 investing, case breakdowns, deep dives into the market that we all call home, and much more, be sure to subscribe. It's free and it shows me just how much you guys enjoy the video. Apart from that, check out my recent video where I discussed the recent problems that the new uplink terminal will cause and what it would mean if Valve were to stop adding cases to the game. I think there is a very good lesson in there for all of us, so make sure to check that out. And with that, I'll see you guys later. If you're still watching, you are truly awesome. Thank you. Goodbye.